Hello Furbo lovers. So today we're going to do another reaction video, and today we're focusing on targeting. So I found a really good video from a really good trainer. Her name is Susan Garrett. I believe she's done a lot of like agility training, and I believe she's a world champion inside that, as you're going to hear pretty soon here. I'm going to skip through a little bit, but I just want to say one thing before I start it, which is my training, my videos are aimed towards giving you like that everyday dog. 99% of us are never going to do agility training. 99% of us are never going to do like competition training. So where my videos come towards is much more geared towards, everyday behaviors, trying to enjoy living with your dog. And so we come out from a little bit different context. And so I'll provide context, what I like, what I don't like, as we play this video.
Some of you watching this video may recognize me as a multi-time world champion of the sport of dog agility. However, little known fact, I actually got my start on this drawing of this dog here.
So it's just kind of like generalized introductions right there. And now this is a little bit different than when I, try to train my dogs. She's used to doing much more, let's say, strict training, where she's teaching her dog how to target many different parts of its body. And so, you do one command and it targets something with its foot. You do another command and it targets something with his nose, etc. One thing I'll say on that really quick is that most people aren't going to need this. Most people don't need to, teach their dog how to target something with their rump, for example. I find the most useful one is just teaching your dog how to target with its nose. You can use that for luring. You can use that for manipulating your dog into different positions. But this is also like an expanded version of that. And so if you want to learn how to, target with many different parts, that's what we're going to look over today.
I've just outlined 10 potential areas that you could train your dog to target to. I probably use 5 or 6 of them very regularly, and 10 isn't even all of them. I didn't mention.
So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit until we actually get into a point where it matters a little bit.
Not just like use your hand. Why do we need all sorts of props? I've probably got like 20 different targeting props that I use when I'm training my dogs with a target. Why not just use your hand? Because it's limited. I couldn't leave it on the set and go offset behind camera. Likewise, you could target your dogs to a certain location and then go and open the front door. You couldn't do that if it all relied on your hand. Could you? True story.
So that's actually a very good point. I usually use targeting with my hand because most of the use cases I get for targeting is just, getting my dog to pose for me, getting my dog to come over in this direction, moving my dog around the house. It's very useful to target with your hand. But if you did want more advanced behaviors, then targeting with different items is definitely a good way of doing this. I've done it with like a tennis ball on the end of a dowel. It's just like a little stick, and that way you can do a little bit more complex movements with your dog, which I think could be really useful. And then once you get your dog used to targeting the tennis ball on the stick, you can take it off the stick and get them to target the tennis ball, anywhere that you want inside the house. So that is a really good point right there, and that's definitely a drawback of only targeting with your hand.
Let's look at all the different pieces now. The obvious one, the nose target. Most people know about the nose target, and a lot of people just teach the dog to touch their nose to the palm of your hand. Now you could do it with touch and release, or I'll often teach a dog to hold the backside and touch and release the palm. There's the side of the face. I will use that when I'm working on my dog.
Okay, so she's just going to go through the different parts that she does with targeting and different reasons why she does this. She was doing, training for movies and agility training. So I really don't think a lot of this is necessary for most everyday people. But if you're interested in that stuff, like, more power to you. One other thing I'll point out is that she is doing this with border collies. Border collies are notoriously high motivated. They like, you can use food, but also just praise with them, verbal rewards. So when you're training your dog, really keep in mind what breed you are training. I have a Great Pyrenees, and that dog is incredibly lazy and not food motivated at all. So training a Great Pyrenees to do agility training or targeting is going to be 100 times more difficult than training a border collie. The Rottweilers are kind of like an in-between. They are very food motivated, which helps a lot with training. But with border collies, they're just insanely motivated about everything. So that's why a lot of them are used for like, sheep herding or, agility training because they're very quick and they're also extremely motivated.
Husbandry behaviors when I want them lying flat out on their side. Now to get that behavior, I might start with a flat target for them. Each paw, so right paw, front left paw, or each of the back paws.
Okay, so she's just going over all the different things that you can do, why side targets are helpful. Let's see what this part is.
So if your dog happens to get sick, or heaven forbid, one of my dogs ended up in a coma and was paralyzed. So her rehab for the many months that followed, I knew how high she could raise each paw. I knew how much she could stretch out, and that gave me a baseline to head towards during her rehab. So those are some of the areas. Now, what are some of the behaviors? Now,
Okay, so I think I'm a little bit over this. It's just going over the different reasons why. I'm going to skip to part 2 where it actually gets into the training aspects of this.
Any guesses what all of these are? If you said those are targets that you use to teach your dog to nose target to, you'd be absolutely correct. And today, I'm going to show you how to write a lesson plan so you can train your dog to nose target. If you're coming here because you were listening to podcast 60, where I promised I would teach you how to write a lesson plan, welcome. If you're coming here because you watched the first episode in the video series all about targeting, gives me an opportunity to show you, for those of you whose dog won't tug, what you can do to do those ever important balance break training plan. I'm just going to give this puppy cookies every now and again, because I want to reward him for staying on his bed like a good soldier. Yes, you're a super good boy. Let's get down to our training plan. First of all, every good training plan, you've got to have a goal. My goal is to have the dog touch this target and keep touching until I mark it. Am I going to get that with him in the first session? Highly unlikely. But that's our overall goal of teaching a nose target. What may go wrong with
Okay, so this is just a little bit too verbose OCD for my liking. Like I generally have like, end goals that I want to get to, but I don't think most people are going to do this. And that's kind of what my videos are geared for, is I want people to to understand the principles behind it to where they can train anything that they want at home. If you go down the route of having like a lesson plan, it can become overwhelming. Look at how many different things she has with her. Like that's just too much. Like most people are not going to need that. If you're trying to train a competition dog, awesome. This is totally useful. But my crowd that I'm trying to go for is much more everyday people. And so if you want to see how, or I guess learn the guiding principles so you can train whatever you want in a much more relaxed, casual manner, then I think my channel will be good for you, and you should check out a couple of my playlists and a couple of my videos.
this? Well, a lot of dogs, especially if you're using something like this, they end up wanting to bite the target. So you need to know whenever you're writing a lesson plan what may go wrong so that you.
And I feel like a lot of her thing is like this. It's like there's so much setup to where it's like, holy crap, we've watched how many videos of this or how many minutes of this, and we have not gone into training at all yet.
I get multiple touches. After he touches, I'm going to give him a cookie, then I have to reload. But if I keep that out there, he's going to want to touch it, and I'm not going to be ready. So it's really important that the last thing I do is reload and get ready for the next repetition, but I have to remove the spoon before I go for my cookie. So he's touched. What's the thing I do before removing it? I reward him. And where am I going to reward him?
This is insane. Like, I like, she's smart, she knows what she's talking about, but it's like, this is just so much. Does she actually get into training at all? Okay, here we go, finally. Let's do some actual training. 20 minutes in the second video.
Mission. My mom's behind the camera. Mission. Yeah. Good. There we go. Yes. Good. So I can't.
Okay, so you'll notice here she's not using a clicker or anything, which I highly recommend for when you're initially training a command. Clickers are very useful. She's using the word good instead of kind of a high-pitched tone as a marker. which can work very well. I've seen people use markers with like clicking their tongue, whistling. You can use whatever you want as a marker. Kind of the key thing with a marker is you need to condition that. You need the marker to become a reward in and of itself. With a clicker, what you do is when I first hit a clicker on a dog, I just click, give the dog a treat, click, give the dog a treat, click, give the dog a treat. It's a Pavlov's theory about like the bell and the dog start salivating. If you ring a bell every time you feed the dog or ring a bell and feed the dog, over time, the bell itself, or the clicker in this case, becomes a reinforcer. It becomes a secondary reinforcer because you've associated it with food or a primary reinforcer. You can also do it with praise. If your dog loves praise, you can associate it with praise. But the whole idea here is the dog has no idea what the clicker is until you teach him. The dog has no idea what good is until you teach him. Now, good, saying the word good, is often it's frequently naturally a secondary reinforcer because you're always saying, good boy, and then you pet your dog, right? So over time, your dog associates, the word good or good boy or good girl with the primary reinforcer of attention. So we're just doing that much more precisely, directly. I can't think of the word right now, but we're doing it much more intentionally. That's the right word. With the clicker. And so by doing it more intentionally, we're using it specifically for training, and I think it can be a little bit more effective than just using the word good.
Can't tug with him. I'm just going to get this out of the way. I can't tug with him because of his teeth. Good. So I want to get him to change his physiology by moving him. So I might do a turn. Good. There we go. So now I'm going to grab my spoon and I'm going to go, get it. Oh, there it goes, yeah. Okay, we'll try one more. This time I'm going to kind of I'm going to use a tuna brownie and stick it. So good. So it doesn't fall off the spoon. Yeah, I'll do one more with a tuna brownie.
That's actually a really smart way of doing the targeting with the spoon. I would really like it if she used a clicker though, because then what she can do is, the turkey on it will work for a while, but it's like you want to eventually fade the turkey out or the tuna, whatever treat it is there. You want to fade it out over time, so where they just touch it by themselves. And it would be much easier if, you put the tuna or the lure on the spoon, they touch it, you click, and then they kind of associate that with the reward more. And then when you remove the reward, they'd be much more inclined to do that behavior again. I also don't think it's the best thing to actually put the lure or the treat like on the target itself, because then your dog's going after it for the food. He's not learning, like he'll learn it, but it's not going to be as quick or as cemented than if you trained it without the treat. Like how I would do this is dogs are naturally curious. If you put down the spoon, they're probably going to go over there and sniff it. And then if you click and then reward, your dog will learn, okay, if I touch the spoon, that's what they want. And you'll see this in our videos with raising Furball, is that I'm teaching her to target my hand, even though my hand has no food inside of it. And she clearly learns that over time.
Put that on there, ready? Get it! Good! Okay, so now we're ready for the real thing. I've got one cookie ready. I'm going to put this down. He's going to walk towards it, and I clicked him just for walking towards it. Do you notice he doesn't have to touch it?
Okay, so now she introduces the clicker. That's interesting. If I was her, I would have done it right away, but at least she's introducing it now, and I think that's very useful. And she also removed the treat from the spoon, so it was just kind of an intermediate step to get the dog interested in the spoon, which that's actually pretty smart.
Good. So I'm going to probably do 5 without letting him touch it. And every time I get it out of the way.
What I would really like here, though, is the release word. Like you'll notice in my training videos, I use a release word with every single command, unless it's a very ephemeral command, but 95% of commands, you can integrate that release word, and it teaches your dog to stay, and it provides so much help over time. Like if you don't train a release word with sit, I'd be curious how she trains sit, but if you don't train a release word, then you have to do like a whole separate training session for stay. Whereas if you just integrate a release word into all of your commands, it makes life so much easier.
Good. So if the dog doesn't move,
Waggle it.
what you can do is move it behind your back and then bring it back out. And if he still doesn't move, turn him in a circle. Come on, little man. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
At least she didn't cut this out.
There you go. Good. Now I'm going to see if he'll touch it. Let's go in a circle, buddy. What are you doing? Come on, let's go in a circle. Here we go. There we go. Nice. And now I'm going to do a little balance break. Get it, get it. Yay. Give him me. Yay. And then give him a cookie from search. Yay. Put another cookie in there. Get ready.
Okay, so I think what she's doing here, I like it in some regards and I don't like it in others. With energetic dogs, this works well, but I don't think it works well with all dogs. And so I think trying to depend on amping the dog up in order to get him to touch something, I think that's, I don't know if it's the most effective way. I'd be curious to see her, train like a bulldog or something like that, a dog that's less energetic. But it's definitely something to kind of spark the interest of the dog again, to move the dog around. You kind of, you refresh its point of view to where it'll actually go and touch something again or sit again. You'll notice inside my videos, I frequently kiss at my dog and I try to, lead her around with my target hand, which is also very useful.
For the next time, one more hand touch. Good. And now we'll present this again. Nice. Good. See how I'm putting it a little bit high sometimes, a little bit low? You can go back to video number 1, where I talk about all the things that I could use this for. Look at that. And we'll do another one. Come on, mister, get it! Yeah! Thank you! What's in there? What's in there for you? There it is, get it! So video number 1 where I talked about all the great things. Okay, buddy. Put you back on your bed. Here we go, mister. Up and up. Good. Video number 1, I talk about all the great things you could teach your dog or puppy to do once they are targeting. This video was really about getting you used.
Okay, so I think I'll stop it there, at least for playing the video. For a summary here, this lady is, I'm gonna move it so she doesn't have an odd face.
To how
I really enjoy her and her techniques here. I think you can learn a lot from her. I think she is much more geared towards like competition training, where she has like a lesson plan, a protocol that you do step by step. The reason why I'm a little bit less inclined to do that is because if you get stuck in it to where you need to do everything step by step, you need everything written out for you, then you're not learning the principles of training as much. And so I really think the principles are more important, and that's what I try to stress throughout my lessons, is that you're trying to build associations. Like dogs, you can teach them words, you can teach them how to do actions just by associating it with, the secondary reinforcer or the primary reinforcer. And so once you learn the principles of dog training, like I wrote a book, and I'll link it in the description if I can find it, a long time ago when I was younger and doing dog training. It's just 7 steps to train any command. And in that I kind of outline, how, what you need to do. And if I remember correctly, you have to get them into position. How are you going to get the dog into position? It depends on what you're trying to train them to do, but that's the first thing you have to do, is get them into position, and then you can reward them and build that association, that positive reinforcement of doing that thing. And then you slowly amp up the difficulty level from there. So first you're going to train them inside of a small room like I am here, and then later on I'm going to take Verbal outside. We'll do all the same commands except we're raising the difficulty level. So I'm trying to stress that once you know the principles of training, then it's easier to train everything, as well as distinguish more bad behaviors, which I'll focus on inside of its own series, as problem behaviors, and how you can extinguish different problem behaviors, because it's the same thing. A lesson plan and a protocol, that's good, but you don't need those things. Once you understand the principles, then those things can scale to any command, any problem behavior that you would like.